afternoon, everyone. Delighted to welcome you all to our presentation on Well Portfolio, Health and Wellbeing at Scale. In today's presentation, we're going to look at global health and how we can make a difference. We're going to look at real estate in particular and how we can use real estate as a vehicle for wellness. You need to put the headphones on. We're then going to look at the value of Well certification in a little bit more detail and at our new Well Portfolio program. And we'll finish up with a few stats on the Well uptake globally. Quickly introduce myself. My name is Mona. I work for the International Wellbuilding Institute and I'm part of the European coaching team based over in Dublin, Ireland. I'm joined here today by my colleague Lev Terrace, who is also part of IWBI's team in Europe and based over in Gothenburg in Sweden. And I'm really delighted to introduce you to Kate, who is one of our guest speakers today. Kate is working for Milliken, who are our partner at the interiors booth here, and also a portfolio participant. So you're gonna hear straight today from one of our participants. And with that, I'm going to hand over to Kate to give a quick introduction about Milliken and what your company is doing. Yeah, it works. She'll part now.
Yeah. Milliken and Company is a global textile and chemical company. We have a really wide global presence in over 4 different continents, making a really wide range of products as well. So things like most of the world's airbag fabrics, silicons that you might find in your smartphones. But the reason that we're here on the Interiors Hub today is that we also have a division that makes floor coverings as well. The company has a very long history, 150-year history, and is family owned. And as part of that company culture, the environment, sustainability and ethics has always kind of run through that. And so engaging in well-being has been a natural extension of it.
Perfect. Take this off again. Thanks, Kate. So I want to start our presentation in spending a few minutes to think about our environment. Our environment is very important, and when we look at animals, for example, we've seen that animals that are kept in closed cages in zoos are less happy, have lived shorter lives, and have produced much less offspring compared to animals that are kept in open and natural environments. And we as humans have a similar natural reaction to our environment. We prefer open and natural spaces compared to crowded office spaces with no daylight and low ceilings, or a big space like this with absolutely no daylight. And when you go on holidays, you probably usually pick a location that, like the mountains or the beach, like a natural location. And you want to you have the urge to escape your day-to-day life. But what if we can actually design our spaces on our buildings that we spend so much time in to include more restorative spaces, more green spaces, so we don't have this urge to escape on a day-to-day basis for a few weeks of the year. I want to keep that for food for thought for the rest of the presentation, and with this, I'm going to hand over to my colleague Lev Terrace, who's going to bring us through the next part of the presentation.
So thank you, Mona, and hi everyone. Now we're going to talk about the global health making a difference, and I would like actually to start about the health risk and how they can be prevented. So the non-communicable diseases are the ones that are not transmitted. And there are diseases like heart diseases, cancer, diabetes, and lung diseases. And they're usually the chronic diseases that account for more than 50% of deaths every year, the past years. And there are risk factors about this one, and it can be actually the lifestyle of the person, for example, the way you eat, the how you exercise and if you're actually physically active. So there is a lot of work that can be actually done to prevent this type of diseases. If we have a look on the cost of this type of chronic diseases, we can actually see that most of the money nowadays is actually spent around the world on, at the end, actually, on surgeries and medical and so on. However, we can actually use a lot of these financial measures to prevent actually people from coming down to these diseases. So back in 2017, the Global Well Institute actually ran through a report and one actually to see the different types of the wellness economy, and they actually broke it down in 10 categories, and how actually the wellness economy is being actually spending money on. And for example, in these categories we have like what kind of medical you use, or for example fitness and mind. And this is actually an economy that it was account to for over $4 trillion dollars. So by talking about this one, I would like to go to the next one, that the real estate is actually a sector that we can actually do a lot of things when it comes to wellness and people affecting the lives. So what is that determines the state of health? So most of the people might think that it might be actually the lifestyle. For example, if you smoke, or if you don't actually eat well, or for example the genes, where we come from, like if we get this like from parents and so on. But more than 50% of our health is being affected by the physical and social environment, and that means actually what's surrounding us. And it's like the buildings, nature, but even people surrounding us, and that we get in touch with them. So you have probably heard many times until now that we actually spend many hours, like most of the time of our lives, indoors. And we can actually do a lot of things, a lot of work when it comes to spaces like our homes and working environments, or even, for example, the university and where our kids are actually going to. So the well-being standard. The well-being standard is actually based on three aspects equally. So it's a system that is based on the design aspects and the operations of the building, and of course getting feedback all the time from people and how they actually interact with the building and how they can actually optimize it. It's like human-centric, and it's a continuous optimizing process. So a couple of facts when it comes to the well-being standard, working with health and well-being. So when it comes to the indoor environment and their quality, if we have better air, so people actually can be more productive. And in the US, 80% of the population are actually dehydrated most of the time. We actually tend to drink water once we're already thirsty, and that means we spend a lot of time dehydrated and spend like a lot of energy that we need to think not in the most effective way. The same way, for example, ergonomy and how we sit like many hours. We're not as effective as we might be, and as the edge technologies talked about before, if you are like being more active, your brain is getting activated and getting better boost. And at the same time, other distractions like noise and acoustic might actually drop your performance. So the well-being standard was actually launched back in 2014, the first version. And since then, it actually got developed to a version even of communities. And back in 2019, we got the version 2 pilot version that is going actually to graduate this year, this spring. So the well-being standard is based on 10 categories, 10 concepts, and there are 110 features under each category. With precondition and optimizations, in the new version 2, you have fewer preconditions, so even existing buildings can actually get the opportunity to get certified and work more with optimizations, and giving flexibility for all projects actually to do a better work. The system is quite similar to other green building schemes, so we have like 3 categories, and depending on the points you get from the optimizations, you can either get a silver, gold or platinum level. We want to actually see projects working on all different 10 concepts, so that's why we have a minimum of 2 points per concept and maximum of 12, so we can actually see like that well is holistically working in all these 10 categories. And we want even to promote projects, interiors, to actually work more holistically in their own space, so we give a discount for tenants that they want even to certify their own spaces in core certified buildings. So how does it work? So once a project gets registered, the project team gets a well coaching contact. Mona and me are actually coaches, and we support projects around Europe with giving interpretation of the well building standard in different areas, like supporting them find alternative strategies or equivalencies. And the project also gets a well AP, that is a well consultant, trying to support the teams find specific solutions in the design. And then you get even a well reviewer, that is a person from GBCI, the third party reviewer that we have. And these are like the people being involved in the certification process. The fourth person is the well performance testing agent, and this is actually what differentiates well from other certification systems. So it's not a perspective certification rather than a certification based on performance. So once you actually get your building complete and occupied, the performance testing agent comes actually on place on site and performs the following measurements in air quality, water quality, light, thermal, comfort, and acoustics. And we have organizations that go through this accreditation and training by BCI, and why we actually created this platform of performance testing agents was to give the opportunity to project teams that are across the world to have the flexibility to choose agents that are locally based and even being accessible to support the teams like faster and even know like how codes and systems work in these countries. With that saying, I'm giving now the stand to Mona to talk about the value of well.
Thanks, Terrace. If you're interested to talk to one of our performance testing agents, there are a few sitting in the back row. Keep your hand. There you go. So, picking up, I'm going to start to talk about the value of well certification, a few aspects from IWBI side, and then I'm going to hand over to Kate in a few minutes. So what are some of the reasons why organizations would use well certification? The reasons can really differ from company to company, and there are lots of different aspects that we've heard, but some of them could be human capital management, so using well as a strategy to attract and retain talent, to increase a company's investment value through GRASP or ESG reporting, support the UN Sustainability Development Goals, use well to support mental health strategies within a company and improve cultural change. I want to go onto some of these in a little bit more detail to explain them, starting off with ESG and SDGs. So ESG reporting. I'm really curious to see in the audience if there's anyone who hasn't heard about ESG reporting or is just not fully certain what it is. I won't pick on you, so yes, I can see a few hands. Brilliant. So trying to explain it. So if you decide tomorrow that you want to invest some of your money, so you have a few savings in your bank account, you decide to invest it in the stock market. By using an investment, by buying a stock, you're in very simple terms giving your money to a company who then uses your money to expand and invest. So if you could invest in any company in the world, how do you choose which company you want to invest in? How do you choose which company you want to give your money to? Maybe you're only interested in the company's balance sheet and how much your profit might be in that investment. Or maybe you actually only want to invest in a company who have sustainability on their agenda. Maybe you're also interested in how the company is treating their employees. And ultimately, you might think that if you invest your money in a company that has environmental and human sustainability at their agenda, your money might be in a safer place. So all of this is basically captured in ESG reporting. So ESG is standing for environmental, social and governance, and it's a reporting strategy on those metrics for companies. For investors, ESG reporting has become a vital information source to get a holistic picture on a company's performance, in addition to just looking at their balance sheet. This is an interesting quote from Larry Fink. He's the CEO of BlackRock, which is one of the largest investment management companies globally. And he's saying that generating sustainable returns over time requires a sharper focus not only on governance, but also on environmental and social factors facing companies today. A long-term environmental, social and governance, so ESG issues, ranging from climate change to diversity to board effectiveness, have real and quantifiable financial impacts. And companies where ESG issues are handled well, they're often a signal of operational excellence. And a way ESG performance can be captured in real estate is by using GRASS. So GRASS is basically a tool for an ESG reporting tool in the real estate market. And 10.8% of the GRASS score relates to building certification, the top three being LEED, BREEAM and WELL certification. And in 2016, GRASS released a health and wellbeing module which provides companies, funds and investors with a tool to understand the company's performance in relation to health and well-being. And the GRASS Health and Wellbeing module has become very popular since its release in 2016 and has seen a 71% increase. So now we've covered ESG as an aspect. Now over to the next acronym, SDGs. SDGs are the UN United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And these are 17 goals put together by the United Nations to achieve a better and more sustainable future for everyone on this planet. And a lot of the features in WELL certification are actually supporting these goals. And if you go to wellcertified.com and our digital standard, you can see a direct link on feature by feature basis on which of the goals, the UN sustainability goals, are supported. Here on the right hand side of the slide you can see the 17 different goals, and the third goal is health and well-being, which is obviously supported by the standard by quite a number of features. The last aspect I want to cover is well at work. And so if you're running a wellness program in your company, you're basically relying on people to participate. And the average participation rate lies between 20 and 40%. But when you're using WELL to improve your building environment, and this comes back to the environment aspect I had at the start of the presentation, you have automatically 100% participation rate automatically through people being in your building. Well does cover and align with most wellness programs, corporate wellness programs, and it can be used to highlight what organizations are already doing and provide more exposure to it, but also identify gaps to improve corporate wellness programs that exist. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Kate to give their direct experience from Milliken perspective. And Kate, if you want to come up, or if you're happy down there.
Okay, so at Milliken, we've really adopted the well-building standard as part of the enhancement of the culture of ethics and safety that I mentioned at the introduction is really a part of Milliken's core values and history. So for a number of decades, Milliken would really be focused on safety in terms of not causing accidents at manufacturing plants, etc. And really now I think in the modern world, as a lot of the workforce activities evolved being sort of sat at office desks and things like that, it's really moved on from not just keeping people safe, but making sure that we're really enhancing people's well-being, looking after people's mental health in terms of the fact that that's kind of a leading cause of absenteeism and ill health currently. So there's really that whole aspect for Milliken to just really embed into our culture and values. But also amongst our various divisions, whether it's our chemical, our floor covering, or our healthcare division, Milliken also has a big history of doing a lot of research and development to really have innovation in our products. And I think because we could really see this whole trend towards well-being really emerging, we really wanted to be able to harness that as part of our whole company's commercial direction. So there was a direct link between our commercial activities there. And one way that we have done that is we've moved on from just doing our own research and development to partnering with the Well Living Lab, which is a research organisation based in North America that is founded wholly on doing research for well-being on the interiors environment, which therefore can really help to lead our direction on how we can further innovate our products to really help the indoor environment for other clients as well, given that our client base, our architects and designers are really engaged in this subject. But I think beyond that sort of commercial remit, Milliken as well could see that actually once we were informed about well-being, once we'd really understood some of the substance behind this trend, we could actually see that it would be of benefit for us as a corporate end user with a workforce who is spending a lot of time in that workplace environment, that really we could use well-being to help to engage our workforce, to help have that employee attraction and retention as it becomes harder and harder to compete for the best talent as well. And so from that extent, we really bought into the information that we found when we were researching from that product perspective, that we could see that yes, there was a clear potential for return on investment through both that employee engagement as well as the reduced absenteeism, but also having that increased productivity. And as far as our North American sites were going as well, also then a direct reduction on their healthcare costs as well. So I think the journey began with really looking at it from our commercial perspective, our product perspective, and then from there reflected on that as a direct employee in terms of what we could then do with our real estate as well.
Thanks, Kate. Brilliant to get your direct perspective. With this, I will move on to talk about Well Portfolio. Starting off with a quote from our CEO, Rick Federici, who says that organizations know that effective change is delivered at scale, and this is the driving force behind this initiative. So applying well at scale is possible through the Well Portfolio program. It's a tool that can be used to apply well to multiple spaces in a streamlined and cost-effective approach. So quick summary of well portfolio. Through portfolio you can apply well strategies to multiple buildings. So we are kind of moving away from certifying single buildings by looking at a company's whole portfolio and asset set. Through applying well strategies across a whole number of buildings, we are looking at streamlining the efficiencies around that. So streamlining cost, documentation, efforts and performance verification. Buildings within the portfolio program have the flexibility to certify under either well pre-certification or well certification, but they're not bound to this. The idea is that you as a company with a number of buildings in your portfolio look at how you can apply well features in the different criteria across the different buildings, and you will be provided with a portfolio score. So the more initiatives you include in your portfolio, the higher your portfolio score. There's some weightings around that, but you will be provided with an annual portfolio score that you can use for benchmarking. So that can be kept internally or that can be kept externally. And the portfolio score is really there to reflect the incremental changes on health and well-being aspects over the years. We've worked together with 36 global companies who have helped us as a pilot participant to develop this program. And really happy to say that one of us has joined us. So you can see Renault on our slide. Unfortunately, Renault cancelled last night because of travel restrictions, but Renault is a company in France. They're taking part in the portfolio program at their campus in Paris, which is very exciting. But I'm really glad, Kate, that you're here. And with that, I'll hand over to you to give your perspective on the portfolio program for Milliken.
Okay, so Milliken's property portfolio is really located all around the globe. We have a number of different manufacturing locations with offices attached, then also corporate headquarters in North America. Our European headquarters are near Manchester, and then also in Shanghai and near Sydney as well. So a really wide range of properties, and Milliken really wanted to work with Well on the portfolio scheme, so that rather than just working initially on individual properties where we were perhaps in that real heart of the A&D community, such as some of our showrooms in North America or our showroom in London, we really wanted to be able to roll this out across our whole workforce and do it in a way that would be both more cost effective and also resource effective as well, so that we could really benchmark going beyond safety for our employees, but really how we were addressing their well-being in the workplace as well. So firstly, we registered all of our global assets through the Well portfolio, and that's almost 1.3 million square metres. And then we're really using it to prioritise certain buildings that will roll out the full certification, but then also really looking at the Well standard as almost a best practice guidance, if you like, so that we can look at aspects such as our human resource policies, because the Well standard is not just about the built infrastructure, but also about the company's policies of how we're going to influence the behaviour of our workforce through that. And so it allows us to sort of see, where we potentially have gaps, or where through our sort of corporate ethos we're already sort of meeting these best practice measures. And then in terms of the practicality, it means that where these policies apply to a whole range of different locations, we can then certify them en masse rather than having to deal with every single building individually and the occupants there. Another area that we're really looking for is to allow us to engage all our teams in the phase projects. So it may be that for some sites we'll be able to get all the way up to the full certification relatively quickly, but for other sites it may be taking different features or different concepts at a time as we work towards readiness for our full portfolio. For instance, we would do a lot of safety monitoring on things like water quality. But with Well, it's really going beyond saying that the water's safe and sort of saying, is it going to meet those best practice measures for health and well-being in terms of sort of being, really readily available, and then of that even higher standard to really encourage people to want to drink the water. So initially the properties that we've certified are our Chicago and San Francisco showrooms, and they've both been certified to the platinum level. Chicago was, at the time when it was certified, it was the 100th Well building to be certified, and I think the numbers of Well properties that have been certified since just sort of really shows how this is really escalating globally, and really there's that momentum growing. Moving on from that, we will be certifying our London showroom this year. So we've already really worked on assessing that in terms of putting together all the document review, and then that performance verification that was just talked about. We'll be doing that in sort of a few weeks' time to really understand, do the measures that we think we've got in place, do they actually perform to that standard? And then if not, we'll have the data from that verification to really understand, okay, what are the gaps then that we would need to address on that basis. So the properties that we've done currently, they have been a mixture of sort of new refurbishments of commercial interiors, where in the case of San Francisco we have started with the architect on board with a whole new space and really incorporating Well as part of that remit from day one. Other sites such as our London showroom, that was refitted really prior to our understanding about the Well standard back in 2015. So now we're sort of really learning what were those gaps within that design process, what are the things that we need to retrospectively enhance, and really just giving us an opportunity to re-engage with the occupants there to see if there were any of their needs that we didn't actually meet within that initial design brief. So as I say, we're quite a long way on with the London showroom. We are targeting to get to a high level of certification on all of our projects, and that's in part with the support of the type of policies that Milliken has in place as well for those behavioural aspects to the standard as well. Following on from London this year, we'll also be certifying our Paris showroom, and then some of our larger and potentially more challenging sites as well in terms of our more substantial office buildings. So our main US offices and our UK, our European headquarters as well, where really I think for me, this is where it begins to be a lot more interesting, because then there's a much wider range of people to really engage within that design process, and to really understand, how we can best meet their needs in terms of, people's expectation on the workplace is always growing and evolving. So really meeting those needs to kind of attract and retain the best talent, but then also to really make people productive in their daily work as well. So, uncovering not just what is ideal for health and well-being, but also for productivity. Do we have the right type of meeting spaces, the right type of collaborative spaces to really do our work and do our work well and creatively together as well. So that's where we are on our journey for portfolio, and with that, I'll hand you back.
Brilliant, thanks Kate. To finish up our presentation, just a few stats on where we are. I think Kate mentioned you were the 100th project in Chicago. So now we are at 256 certified projects globally. We have close to 4,000 projects that are registered for certification globally and covering 58 countries. Looking then at Europe, in Europe we have 55 certified projects. We are over 1,700 registered projects and covering 24 countries. our leading markets, you'll be happy to see UK right at the front. We have over 1,300 registered projects in the UK, 9 certified, followed by France, Spain, Netherlands and Italy. And our emerging markets are Poland, Sweden, Ireland, Hungary and Germany. And with this, I will finish our presentation and open it up for questions.
Have you found that any particular countries have kind of pushed back against like a wellness initiative? I know like the UK is up there like wanting to kind of go with it, but are there any countries that are kind of less enthusiastic?
That's a really good question. I don't think we really get any pushback. It probably is more an awareness in the market. And yeah, I think it's about the awareness in the market and the sustainability consultants, architects to get to know about it and learn about it. It's still relatively new in the market. It's been released in October 2014, as Left Harris said, and the uptake has been enormous. I think we are pretty good doing it in 24 countries. We're a small team in Europe, but I don't think we've got any particular pushback in terms of that. It's probably just the awareness that needs to happen in the different markets.
Actually, just to mention something, we usually say that, or what we've got as a feedback from our users, that well is the next wave of sustainability. So in these countries and markets where like sustainability has been actually something very important and working like for a long time, I think this is where we have like our most supporters so far. So it's not about just about pushback, rather than like awareness and like going beyond sustainability.
Yes, I don't think I've found any particular area where there's been pushback as we've talked to our client base in different countries. I think the one sort of question that's sort of maybe universally a little bit skeptical is, what about the financial payback? How do we prove the financial payback? But I think everybody can really see the benefit from the well-being side, and I think it's just about where that economic argument lies. But I think increasingly the data sort of really supports that argument, and I think a lot of the time the architects, the designers can really find that can help them to then handle some of the difficult challenges that always come up around budgets. The fact that there is this benefit versus trying to cut back and make everything absolutely as dense and occupied and as kind of cut down to the minimum.
Yeah, I think we heard it in some of the presentations early on. It's more looking at the holistic picture rather than just the construction cost. There's another question over there.
Hi, my name's Peter. I'm from Brighton, interior design firm there. Just from a purely practical point of view, should we be working to version 2 now, or still version 1?
Version 2, please.
Version 2?
Yes.
Even on, I mean, what's the big difference between the two? Because we kind of came into it only just recently, where version 2 had came out, I think, sort of a few months before. But I believe the project we're working on was registered under version 1.
So it's you can still register under both versions at the moment, and we have a lot of projects that are registered under the first version and going through the process. If you have a version 1 registered project, that's absolutely no problem. You can look at upgrading, but obviously you've incorporated the version 1 requirements into your design, so you can just go through with version 1. If you're starting fresh on a new project, I'd recommend version 2, and the reasons for that is that it's much more flexible. The way it's been designed is much more flexible. So with developing version 2, we've tried to listen to all the people who've used version 1 to the market and got their feedback, and that's what we've incorporated in the second version. So so far the feedback on version 2 has been brilliant, and I'd really recommend looking at it.
As a user of the standard, I would also agree that version 2 does give you that much more flexibility. I think one of the big differences is that there are slightly fewer preconditions in version 2 to get to that basic silver level. But then on top of those, you would then select a certain number of optimizations. So you can really, I think, address those aspects that are most relevant to the workforce in that particular location, that they're going to get the most value from, rather than having to be sort of quite so prescriptive, and maybe there's one particular aspect that maybe would have been a bigger economic hurdle to address, or would maybe have had slightly less benefit to address, but it would have been fixed in version 1. And in version 2, I think there's just that little bit more flexibility to really tailor to the needs of the local occupants.
Great question. Thanks. More question?
Someone else? Hi there, I'm George. I'm a sustainability consultant, also from Brighton, actually. So I found that a few of my clients have been developers from hotels and wellness spas, and they've inquired about the possibility of looking at well, and I haven't really known how to go about it, in the sense of, do we go for a full-on well assessment, or do I just sort of incorporate some of the well stuff in it?
That's actually a really good point. With the second version, we're trying to branch out of the office environment. So the way the second version has been created is by providing more flexibility and moving into different markets. So we have a certified hotel in California. I can send you some information later on. And there's a lot of interest in different markets. We're branching out into the industrial area, warehouses. We're looking at applying well to airports now. So really looking at different building types, addressing more.
Yeah, thank you.
Brilliant. Any other questions? Oh, one more.
It's a quick question for Mona. We certify lead and certify well. If a client, imagine that, come to me and they say, I have money only for one certification, what would be the right answer? Lead or well?
I don't want to answer that question because I think it's equally important. I think we would need to work on that client to incorporate both human and planet sustainability, because they're both. There's no point in being healthy if we destroy on the planet and the other way around. So, let's talk to the client again.
Thank you.
There's one more question over here.
Hi, I'm Terry from Lifelight Studio in London, not Brighton. I'm interested in knowing, when I speak to a lot of clients, they very much take the top-down view. So the CEO or the marketing department or the HR department are very keen on applying the WELL principles and sometimes going for certification as well. But I don't find there's a lot of acknowledgement or knowledge from the end user, the consumer, about the benefits that can accrue from their building, their space, whatever it is, whether it's a school or an office or a hospital, whatever, of meeting the WELL standard criteria. How do we all collaborate so that we can spread the knowledge and get people from the bottom demanding the people at the top start applying for the WELL certification?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. I'm curious to hear Kate's point of view, but I think what we're seeing when we're actually going through what buildings are going for certification, in particular in the second version, there are a lot of kind of educational requirements around the different features. So we're seeing buildings that have signage around the importance of daylight, that have signage around the importance of nourishment. So once you go for certification, these become natural elements in your building, and everyone learns about it and hears about it. And the most amazing thing is that people take it home and they really it changes people's lives. How we can do that in a building that's not going for it yet, it's probably talking to people and spreading the word. Anyone else has any ideas?
Yeah, I think it's definitely down to communication, because I think that there is at all levels of people in society this real interest in well-being, both people as individuals but then also their communities. So I think it's more about, as you say, having that awareness and I think involvement as well. So, once a building has or a project has begun that well certification process, very early on, it's one of the requirements to really involve those stakeholders in that design process, in that engagement of what those needs are. And so I suppose maybe there's a stage maybe prior to considering certification to maybe get that engagement and have that feedback so that there's maybe more of that awareness there as well. I guess because we're part of portfolio, we're maybe talking about it a little bit more with our associates, even in sites that aren't being well certified, but maybe just communicating to them, what we are doing in terms of, things like the water, the nourishment, things like that, where we're addressing them sort of maybe in advance of sort of certifying the whole site.
Just wanted to follow up on that. Thank you. The question wasn't entirely altruistic, because what I'd like to do is to try and get clients engaged so that they will employ a lighting consultant, i.e. me, to talk about the effects of the lighting and how important that can be in a building that's going either for certification or just wants to go down the route of applying the well principles. So I find it very difficult sometimes to give people a firm benefit that they can get out of it. They always talk about the ROI, but do the IWBI have any, obviously you've got a great website and you're doing lots of stuff with that, but are you looking at doing some stuff that's more aimed at just the general consumer so that we can increase the knowledge or help increase the knowledge, which in the end will lead to more projects for you guys?
Yeah, we do have a lot of information on the website. We're running monthly webcasts that are all available online for free, so there's a lot of information up there, and there's specific ones on lighting. Particularly when we brought up version 2, we had updates on the different concepts, and I think it's spread the word. The other thing idea I'd have is maybe just bring your client in a well-certified space or in a space that has a lot of daylight and let them experience it and feel it.
Another ways, the wellographers we have developed, and even the beat application, so you can actually very easily show to them through your phone about the standard and the wellographies and like the scientific work behind that.
And there's another great resource that we're working on that is not out yet. We haven't even decided on a name yet, but it's basically a page by page. For each of the features, you will have a description on the background and the research behind why this feature has been written, the way it's been written, and why it's there. So once that's out, I think that would be an interesting one as well. Any other questions? Well, I would say thank you very much. Thanks for listening.